Hi, good evening. How are you doing? Welcome to my daily session on mindset. I will be talking today on the weekly theme, which would be for the day, which would be basics. And after that, I'll talk about mindset, a little about what mindset is all about. Then I speak about one of the routines, which is the daily meeting or a weekly meeting as per my quarterly business plan template. So let me start with basics. In any function, whatever job we are doing in any company, there is somebody who is delivering something to us, and then we are giving something to somebody. When I say something, it could be information, it could be a processed product, it could be a semi-processed product, it could be a decision, it could be some document, or whichever that somebody is giving it to us, and we work on that, and then add some value to that. It could be a drawing, it could be a design, and then give it the next function or the next person in the line. So this is some kind of a relay race in any company, and relay race has a baton. And in the relay race, it's easy to see the baton because you are looking at that as you are running, and you always pick up the baton without any problem, and after that you continue running. That's the way the relay race runs. And in the case of a relay race, the transfer of the baton is more or less uh, seamless because if you recollect and think of that, when a relay race is going on, the first runner would run, let us say, for 100 meters, and after that, as he's approaching the 100 meters line, the second runner is already ready to start running and picks up the pace, and he doesn't allow the second first runner to slow down, but he picks up the pace at the same pace. He starts running along with the first runner and picks up the baton at 100 meters exactly, and then starts continuing to run, and so that the speed is not lost, and the team can win. That's the way the relay race runs. So in the manufacturing or in business too, we have a similar kind of a relay race. It's identical to that. The only problem is the baton is invisible. Many times it's invisible. Sometimes it is visible, but then it is very, very obscure. So what would happen ideally if suppose we reflect that to the business scenario? Somebody is running. Let us say we talk about a very simple operation of, let me say, planning. Okay, or maybe production would be much easier. We'll take planning, which is more or less common across industry. Let us say the planning function is supposed to be doing the plan, and once the planning is done, then the end of the planning is to really define the 3-day rolling plan or a 5-day rolling plan, or it could be the planning for the project, whatever be the plan that the person has done. And then that particular plan has to be transferred to the next person in the line, next person in the queue, next person in the relay race. Many a times in the industry, in business, it could be multiple people picking up the baton after the first round. After the first runner, in the case of a relay race, it will be only one person picking up. Let's say if it's a planning function, then multiple people will pick up that baton and start running. That's the business runs, because they could be, if you do a project planning, there could be design, there could be procurement, there could be production, there could be construction, there could be projects on the site, there could be finance, there could be development, there could be maintenance. Various functions could be there in that relay race, and it could be purchasing, very, very important, could be to develop a vendor. So everybody get the baton at the same time. That would be analogical to giving a baton, would be comparable to, let us say, sending an email, for example. Somebody makes an email and send it across. And when I started industry, it was not an email. We had to do cyclostyle copies. There was a cyclostyling machine where we do the template, and after that, remove copies and give the copies to everybody. That's when the job gets ended. And then the next next set of runners would start running, and after that, they would hand over to the next people in the chain, and they start running. That's the way it runs. In the relay race, like you have, I'm sure, thought through and then visualize that, as the first runner is approaching 100 meter line, let us say at 80 meters, the second runner already starts running, so that he's now picking up the speed as the same as the first runner, and then picks up the baton, so that he won't lose any time in that. Whereas in industry, that doesn't happen, does it? When the first runner is completing his plan, let us say the first runner is the planner who would do the plan, and the second runner is possibly doing some other activity. He's not really worried about the plan because he's occupied with some other thing. So once the So you would not pick up the plan immediately. You pick it up maybe after a day or two, or sometimes after a couple of hours, couple of days also is possible, and then he would start running. Now, in that situation, it is extremely important that the first person who did the job should be able to satisfy the needs of the second person, so that the second person need not come back to ask a query or a question or clarification. Instead, he should be able to take that whatever that he got, document, information, product or service, and then move on without any problem. And to be able to do that, the easiest that I've understood in industries, in business, is to prepare what is called as a handover checklist. I know that you heard of this word, handover checklist, which is basically a set of criteria or the expectations that the second runner would be having. And it's a kind of a confirmation that all these expectations have been met when the particular document or product or service or design or drawing is given to the next function. Now, this handover checklist is something which is extremely essential, which is practiced in a very, very nice way in some industries. For example, in the case of airline industry, even today, I believe the pilots do a manual check of all the requirements on the airplane before the airplane is started, before the takeoff happens, so that they have ensured that all the items are checked. And that is something which is checked and documented before the takeoff. Similarly, some industries do that, and it's not common everywhere. And in some cases, the checklist is done more or less as a daily basis or a weekly basis. I'm telling that, okay, I'm doing this on regular basis, but I'm not really confirming for every order. But in any case, some don't have at all. There is no checklist at all, handover checklist. The next thing is to have a receipt checklist. Whether when I'm receiving something, I also need to see whether I've got whatever I wanted. So that is the next one, which is important. And the third one is to make sure that I've got a processing checklist. When I process that particular task, I had to do some activities. To ensure that these activities are done and documented, I need to really give a tick. In manufacturing, now I come to manufacturing and production, it happens very religiously at the operator level. How does it happen? The operator, first of all, sets the machine. Let us say there is a machine on which a new order has to be processed, and then for that, the setup has to be done. So you change the tools, fixtures, then various clamps and setup, program, everything you change, and then you start manufacturing the component. Once you do the first component, then what is called as a setup approval report is generated. That means the person who did the setup would tell the supervisor or the quality inspector that my setup is done now. Can you please release this setup? That is called a setup release, in which case the supervisor or the quality manager would come to the machine, check the component, check for all the dimensions, check if all the setup criteria are met. Things like whether the setup time which was mentioned in the plan and the actual setup time are matching or not, because that's equally important for the cost and for the productivity and for the efficiency of the operation. Next is to ensure that the cycle time which is being run on the machine at this moment is the same as what was the planned cycle time. That is also equally important, because only then will we be able to make money, because your quotation was based on a planned cycle time, and if the actual cycle time is higher than the planned cycle time, then you are losing without any knowledge at all. And unfortunately, that reality of the actual cycle time being higher than the planned cycle time is rampant across industry. More or less every place it is the same situation. Wherever I've gone, we have done this activity, it's on the higher side. So now that is confirmed. Then after that, you at least the data is captured. What is the actual cycle time and what is the planned cycle time. Like that, some data is captured, whether the actual cycle time was okay, planned cycle time was okay, whether the tool layout was okay. Such things are captured in the setup process, which are more to do with the processing. Actually, it's not really the end outcome of the setup. The outcome of the setup would be the product, and for the product, there are multiple characteristics to be checked. This would be mentioned in what is called the control plan in manufacturing. As per the control plan, the dimensions are checked, and then the quality inspector or the supervisor would give a clearance for the setup. That is a setup approval report. He puts a signature and a stamp, says now it is fine, you can start off. Once that is done, then the production starts, and after that, during the production, normally there is what is called as a periodical inspection report. That means the operator who is operating the machine would check the quality of the component at some frequency, and typically this frequency could be once a tray, could be once a shift, depending on the process capability and the process stability. This frequency is designed by the manufacturing engineer, again mentioned in the control plan. As per that, report is generated. So from one operation to the next operation, the part gets moved. Along with that, the setup approval report and the periodical inspection report. Setup approval report would be abbreviated as SAR and periodical inspection report as PIR. Both would move together. So in case there is a very, very precise and a specific mention of the checklist. That's a kind of a checklist, where the processing quality and the outcome quality is all confirmed and documented, and then goes to the next step. And the next step would next operation normally starts. Any operation in very good manufacturing companies would start by a inspection. That means I inspect, I check whatever I got, whether it is okay or not okay. I can't really check the processing parameters because that's something which is not in my scope, but at least I can check the outcome. When I pick up the component, I know whether the component was okay or not okay. Any deviations were there, I do that first check. And after that, I do the processing. Then after the processing, again, I check for my quality, which is recorded in the PIR, periodical inspection report. In some cases, the PIR, periodical inspection report, also has some characteristics of the incoming quality. Could be to do with damages, could be to do with the right bolts being put there, could be to do with right nuts being fixed, could be to do with the left hand and right hand not being interchanged, things of that kind, which are extremely important for the function, also gets checked at that point, and then the operator processes. So summarizing, in production, it's quite common at the operator level. Mind you, this is at the operator level. It's quite common to have this sequence of check the incoming quality, whatever that you received, then check your processing quality, and after that, check the outgoing quality. These are the three things which anybody does as a basic activity in the production. Whereas when you come to the indirect functions, that hardly happens. It doesn't really work that way, where I'm checking whatever I got, whether it is okay to my satisfaction or not, and whether whatever I did was okay as per my standards are concerned. Many a time the standard will not be there as to what I need to be doing. I do it with my experience. That's why when somebody changes, a new person comes in, the entire thing collapses because he has to take another 3 to 6 months to get ramped up because he doesn't really know what was the earlier person doing. So that knowledge is lost. So the checklists are very, very critical here. Then the next person, next after that, once I've completed my activity, I very rarely do any kind of a confirmation checklist to say that now I've completed it and handed over to the next function with a handover checklist. If suppose these checklists were done, it would be really great. And in fact, in one of the large multinational companies, when we were doing an activity, we were working with them as consultants. And one of the outcome of this activity to the intervention to ensure that their project management efficiency and effectiveness improves was to get every function to define their demand, which is the handover checklist for the previous function, and discuss with the next function to understand what their demand is and make a handover checklist for both. That means you've got two handover checklists, one for incoming, one for outgoing. And that is something which is very, very nice. And once it was done, it just took them about a couple of weeks to create a magic. They achieved last financial year, that is till December. Their calendar year is January to December. They achieved the all-time record in their history of maybe 30, 35 years. So that's what happened, because the once the checklist is known, I'm clear, because nobody in the organization comes to not work, not to contribute, not to be successful. Everybody wants to do that. So this is something which is very, very interesting. The next place where it works is in the supplier. When the supplier and vendors are there, normally vendor supplies what is called as self-inspection report, and it is mandatory that on the same report, see, whenever you're having a handover checklist, it's important that on the same handover checklist, I again reconfirm that whatever I received is correct as per the checklist which has been filled up, because that filling up is something which is trust which I have got with the earlier function, imagining that they have done the job correctly. So in the case of a vendor, you get what is called as a self-inspection report. On the same self-inspection report, the inverse inspection would check the component and make their record of whatever dimensions or whatever results they found in their inspection. And if that doesn't match with what the vendor has said, then it is basically a breach of trust. Of course, it may not match when the tolerances are in terms of 0.1 microns because of the measurement accuracy itself. Normally, such cases, the variation is understood up to some level, where you say that it's because of the measurement variation. But when it comes to things like 20 millimeter diameter, and the vendor has said I've made 20.2, and then the inverse inspection finds it as 18.2, a difference of 2 millimeters. That is not a problem. Even if you are using a measuring tape, not a vernier caliper, you would not be getting an error of 2 millimeters between the two measurements. So that's something which is understood in the industry, and based on that, the reaction is done. And this reaction is something which is very, very fundamental to ensure that the baton is getting passed regularly, consistently in business. Super. I think you understood that. But why doesn't it happen everywhere? Again, because of the mindset. So what is mindset? Mindset is all about the way we are perceiving the reality, the way we are thinking, the way we are deciding, and the way we are acting or responding. What happens is, in our past, we would have had a lot of emotional experiences, emotional memories, and these get accumulated together to form what a framework. And this framework is what we call as mindset. And the mindset is the one which drives continuous predictions of the next immediate reality in real time basis. And this is happening in nanoseconds, I would say, in our mind. Constantly it is being done. And this prediction is what that defines what and how we are going to perceive reality, how we are going to connect the dots to establish a cause and effect, how are we going to decide, basically either by intuition or gut, or by assessing the benefit and effort involved, and finally how we are going to act and respond with clarity and conviction. That is what mindset is all about. Mindset is about our behavior, our understanding of the world, our way we are acting, where we are behaving. Why would I not do a checklist? Because I take things for granted. I would assume that these are all things which are normal. There is nothing special involved in that. And I assume that I can do that because I've always done that. And the next function also thinks that I've always done that. He always will do that. Whereas the expectations many a times are not clear at all. So that's why this all these processes and all these complexity is involved. It would be definitely very nice if two people could talk to each other and find out what they want. And then I consistently strive. Everybody in the organization consistently strives to understand who their customers are and to make sure that they are extremely delighted and satisfied. If that happens, then these checklists may not be required. But checklist even then is required for consistency, for ensuring that there is consistency and you are able to understand where there are some spikes of performance, spikes of problems, challenges. And that's the place where you can address and try to improve it. That's the fundamental principle of a checklist. So that's not done. So now let's see how we can introduce that, how we can change the mindset, how can we create a culture of that sign. So now I use the word culture and mindset. It's very simple. Please don't get confused. Mindset is something which is individual, personal. I have a mindset, whereas culture is a collective mindset which gets developed in a team, which has the same phenomenon, same kind of a thing based on past emotional experiences, emotional memories. The team together develops a way of behaving, way of acting. If you go to a friends group, you behave differently. If you go to the work group, you behave differently. You go to a family function with family and relatives, you behave differently. That's because you have got a different culture there. Each group has got its own culture. So this culture is something which is a collective mindset is what I would define it as. Collective mindset is what culture is all about. And collective, commonly agreed upon, common mindset. And the collective mindset is culture. Mindset is individual behavior. Culture is group behavior or society behavior. Depending on the size, you could define it in multiple ways. So how do you change mindset and culture? As adults, it's very simple. All we have to do is keep debating and discussing on those topics. And when we do that, automatically our emotional experiences change. And because of that, our mindset gets a different basis, different platform. Therefore, we start behaving differently, working differently, on a very slow basis, because it don't happen very fast. Because I'm now 55 years old, or 56 years old. I'm 56 years old. 56 means that for 56 years, my mind has got so many experiences and then memories with linked to emotions, and it's not possible that of the next 1 or 2 days I do something different and the entire 56 years of background is all wiped out. But nothing can get wiped out. Only the new ones can get overwritten, can get written on top. So that becomes more important and more visible. I remember it's something like applying new tar to the road. You can't really, if you have a crack in the road, if you have a line in the road, the best way to do it is apply new tar and then new asphalt, and the crack gets covered and then the line gets covered. And so only by putting new we can do it. We can't really take out what is there in the mind from the earlier memories. It's not possible. So the new experiences that can be gained as an adult only by debates and discussions. This can happen either using contextual hints are again important, because you can't simply debate about something which is not really relevant for you. So that relevance is extremely important. Therefore, the context is important. Therefore, contextual hints are important. So using contextual hints, you can either debate and discuss, which is what happens in doHow, an invention by me for changing mindset and culture. Or you could also do it in meetings, regular meetings, where you get people to align towards one objective, and you talk about what behaviors you are expecting, and that keeps getting repeated regularly because it's a regular routine meeting, and that's something which is very, very important. So meetings are equally important. Meetings are the other place where you can change the mindset. So tomorrow I'll spend a little more time on speaking about the daily meeting. Today I think we are already at 20 minutes, so I don't want to continue for long. So meetings would be done tomorrow. I'll talk about the daily meeting, and with that I come to the end of today's discussion. Checklists was a core theme today to introduce those checklists. Thanks a lot for watching, and please don't forget to speak to your neighbors, relatives, friends, or colleagues on their perceptions of people-to-people interactions and what you assume their perceptions would be. Find the commonalities and the differences. Start the dialogue to establish a common collective mindset. Thanks a lot once again. For those of you in India, have a nice evening. For those of you outside India, have a great day ahead. And remember to think of checklists. Thank you so much. Goodbye.